Meet Matt Devine. He's not a superhero, not a celebrity. He's one of us. At one point, considered clinically obese, he transformed himself. Running 7 marathons in 7 days for a cause close to his heart. But he didn't stop there. The Ride for Change was his next venture, a 100-day journey on 2 wheels.
2 Edmontonians are back home after spending 4 months cycling over 13,000 kilometers across Canada.
And the impact? Almost $100,000 raised for children who needed it most.
I cycled 13,000 kilometers and I'm not those people, so I'm living proof it's okay to be flawed, right? Like you can still do incredible things.
Join us as we delve deep into his journey, the highs, the lows, and the undeniable impact one person can make. So you've just completed about 13,000 kilometers, raised about $100,000 for charity. You've been back home for a couple weeks now. How have you been feeling physically since you got back? How's your body adjusted? But more importantly, what's the mental adjustment been like to getting back to quote unquote normal life?
Yeah, so first of all, the body, it had its moment of realization as to what has transpired. I think when you're on the road cycling every day for, that 7, 8 hours, your body and your mind just play tricks. It's like, I got to go tomorrow, so I'm not going to really let you be aware of what's coming. But when you get home, even 2 or 3 days after I got home, I didn't feel it. And then it hit. And it's a complete level of exhaustion I haven't felt before. Some people call this like a long COVID kind of deal for endurance people like myself. I went to the doctors and yeah, I had elevated blood pressure. I had maybe some potential heart complications, but not like serious, just elevated heart rate. They want to make sure I don't have any sort of skipping going on there. But the biggest thing physically is exhaustion and weight gain, immediate weight gain, because you go from excessive calorie burn to zero because you're just too tired to do anything. So I'm getting back on my feet. I'm starting to work out again. So we're going to get through all that. Mentally, it's the strangest thing. It's you miss it tremendously, but I don't want to be back out there. I thought, everybody told me embrace it, be in the moment, and I did. But I'm not missing the torture of getting up every day, riding for that 7, 8 hours, getting off the bike at 3, sitting in a motel in the middle of nowhere, just killing 10 hours till you get back on the bike. I don't miss that at all. I miss the element of having that mission. I miss the mission, like it was prescribed. I miss getting up and attacking the day. I won't lie, sometimes I wake up in the morning and I'm like, well, what am I going to do today? So that's kind of it. Mentally, I'm not as bad as I thought I'd be because I don't miss it. I think if I'd missed it, it would be a really bad scenario because you just go to nothing overnight. And if you miss the event and you're not on your bike anymore, it would have just been a horrible thing. But the fact that I'm relieved to be off the bike makes it easier.
Do you feel tempted in any way to let things go? As far as when you look at people who have been on mission and so disciplined for so long, and I'm thinking I'm referring to guys that come back from being in the military for 2 years, 4 years, and they have to be clean shaven and cut and dressed properly and all the things, and then they get back and they're just got grungy beards and long hair and do you feel like you want to slip into that where you're like, you know what, I just did 100 days of craziness, now I'm going to do nothing?
No, I recognize the importance of becoming physical again for my mental health. It's also critical that I connect again with my, albeit small community of people who I work out with. It's kind of my only piece of sanity right now because it's distracting. What I will say is that I allow myself to eat stuff without the hard work, and I keep telling myself I'll start tomorrow. I'll start tomorrow. Well, I've been starting tomorrow now for 2 weeks, so it's going to start up here, and I'm actually going to share the journey. I'm gonna publish my weight and my body fat percentage, and we'll start a brand new rebuilding process, and I'll share that with everybody. But the worst thing I can say I've done so far, probably, I had one night where I enjoyed a few drinks with Nicole to celebrate. The worst thing I've done though is just eat more than I should. But I'll never let myself go because even when I put on my shirt now, I look at it and I go, I'm starting to get that. I'm not like, "Ooh," but I'm starting to feel it a little bit. So I can't stand. So I'm gonna get back in that gym and smash it out.
That's good. So now that you've had time to look back on this journey, what's your perspective of what you've done, and has it shifted in any way from when you started?
It's a real hard question to answer because, when you're out there on the road, every day seems like in itself an event. You're going out there to survive the day, and you have 100 of these days to survive, and you never really get a sense of the magnitude. And now when I sit in my living room and I look at the map of Canada on the wall and I see all the pin placements of the places that I cycled, I I can't get my head around it. I can't believe that I cycled that far. When I pulled into Edmonton, I left I left Edmonton in a car and we drove for almost 8, 9 days to get to Halifax. Well, when you cycle from Halifax all across Canada up to the Northwest Territories, Yukon, and back home, when I pulled into Edmonton, I can't believe I can say I cycled all the way home. Like I actually cycled into Edmonton. I've went on 2 week vacations on an airplane that were shorter than what I did on that bike. So to me, I'm just, for the first time, I can sit back and nobody else has to tell me, like, what did you do? You cycled how far? I look at the map on the wall now and I go, I can't believe I did that. Like, I still can't get my head around it. And honestly, Chris, if someone said, we'll give you $10 million tomorrow to go and do it, I don't think I could. I
Hmm.
don't think I could. Not only because it's hard, but because I almost didn't know what I signed up for. And now that I know, I tell people, tread carefully. It's a punishing experience. So the magnitude of it is sunk in, and I pat myself on the back a little bit. Like I did something that, at a guy my age, like I just sometimes go, wow. I look at pictures and go, wow. It's incredible. I traveled that distance.
Does it feel like a different life at this point? Like, is it far enough removed that you're looking and you're going, that just seems like a different time?
Yeah, it seems like I've been off the bike for months now. It seems
Hmm.
like, I think back to day one. Well, I even said to you on the ride on day 60, day one seemed like years ago. While now, day one, it's just a very, very, the day I got on the bike and started is a very foggy in my mind. I have to look at pictures to remind myself of that day. What's happened is I've become rewired.
Hmm.
I've learned a lot of things about the ride. The ride taught me some things, and some things you didn't want to learn, and some things that you probably needed to learn, but not the things I thought I'd learn. So it's a very interesting mellowing out period now, and what's coming to me as I sit back and reflect.
So to that point, can you look back and point out a single moment or experience that stands out as something that was like the most transformative or impactful in the ride?
Yeah, there were two. One was very physical, and one was mental, in nature. You know, the physical one happened day one, when I cycled over 230 kilometers. It was a 12-hour ride. We started the day at 8. I pulled into the destination at 8:30. It was cold, it was wind, and I realized what I've got myself into. I was despondent, I was disheartened, I wanted to quit. I had the full body cramps coming in, no hot water. And at that moment, I just, everything in my mind and in my body said, you've bitten off more than you can chew. And I started to doubt even why I was there. I was like, why am I here? What am I trying to prove? And I think honestly, if it hadn't have been for a couple of people, I would have quit. Um, and I like to be this honest because I want people to understand that this endurance stuff, everybody says bite down on the stick, feel the pain, embrace it, blah blah blah. Look, when you're in that much of a hole, sometimes it's the suck is so bad that
Mm.
it's hard to move forward. But I did. So I taught myself a lesson about resiliency and how tough I can be, how powerful the human spirit is, and I now know that I can harness that energy, this internal superhero strength that we all have. We can harness it and do amazing things. Because I got up, the next 4 or 5 days and rode through terrible Atlantic Canada conditions, 190, 170, 200-kilometer days. We kept going. So that was the physical moment. The mental one came when I realized late in the ride I was not going to solve the problems that I started the ride with. And it was a bit of a punch in the gut because I really thought this ride was going to be like something in the movies where the hero crests the mountain and the sun's shining on my face, and I was going to see with such clarity the journey ahead and my purpose, and I was going to find this music, and it was just going to be a beautiful experience. And every day I got up, and it was the same script. It was focusing on the endurance, the suffering part, and never at any time did I spend time in this space solving my problems and finding answers and the stuff you hope would happen. And it sucked because I thought I thought if I was going to take this incredible journey, I would strip myself down so raw that I would just be open and I'd find the answers and in some cases the questions that I needed to ask. And it and I got to be honest with people, like that's the reality of it. Like this was a building block in my transformational journey, but don't kid yourself. If you think signing up for an Ironman or running a marathon or doing any of that stuff is going to be like, it is helpful. It creates fitness. It makes you a better mentally. But if you are got some internal struggles going on, it's going to take a lot more than just tackling these major endurance events. And that sucked for me because I really, really wanted to come home this changed person. And I still have a lot of the baggage I started with.
You're talking about it like you were expecting this movie style hero's journey where he starts out on a noble cause and then has to dig deep in himself and realizes that we all have faults, and then for the next thing you have this training montage, and then they have this epic battle, and you get this new hero who emerges humbled. Do you feel so you're looking at it on in my opinion on like a microscope of the 100 days, where I'm looking at it more on a macro? Is 7 and 7 and the ride for change, is that just your training montage of the life that is Matt Devine,
You
and
know,
there's still something greater for you to do, I guess is where I'm trying to get to?
yeah, I think that so to your point, I thought I'll tell you, like very honestly, now that I've been through it, I was running away from something.
Hmm.
I I think I had problems that I couldn't figure out how to solve them because I didn't know what the problem was. I knew I was surrounded by overwhelming sense of grayness. I was finding that I had no inspiration. I was finding that I was stuck. And I think a lot of adults, especially male adults in this age range, experience this. And I think when I said I'm doing that 13,000-kilometer ride, I think that my belief was there would be battery cables put to my ears and it would jumpstart me. And I would come back this amazing fixed guy. All the baggage would be gone. I'd be wearing my new Superman cape, and I'd be the guy walking into the gym that cycled 13,000. I'd be relevant again, and yeah, people walk up to me and say, "You're the guy that cycled the 13,000 kilometers." But after about 3 days or 4 days of that, it, it didn't do what I thought it was going to do, but it
Hmm.
did do other things. It did, to your point, it started to open my eyes that maybe doing these enormous, gigantic events and putting yourself through this isn't going to solve the problem, but it's a tool. It gives you purpose. It gives you relevance. It gives you a chance to prove that even where I'm at in life, I can still be amazingly strong and inspirational to people. And it gives me a chance to prove that. And that's without any ego. I think it's allowing me to reestablish myself and in doing so helping others.
Hmm.
So that's as honest as I can get about it. Like I think I really wanted to see a brand new man coming across the finish line. I'm the same man, but I'm more aware of my flaws, if that makes any sense.
Towards the end of the ride, some of our conversations, you had mentioned the shift in like seeking some of the recognition. You realized that initially you thought you wanted to go out and be recognized for this guy of being this doing this great thing. And then towards the end you realized, no what, this is just I'm doing this for the charity. I don't care about the likes, the accolades. I'm moving forward. This is for you can ride too. How now that you're post the ride for change, how are you keeping that perspective moving forward?
Well, I can tell you uh, with evidence that what was super important to me before, which was putting myself out there, getting that social media feedback. I think if you look at my Instagram account now, there's probably 1/10 the posts, maybe even 1/20th the posts that were going out. Maybe it will have one story a day, maybe one story every couple days. So I recognize that that's just a false idol. It really doesn't
Mm.
represent anything. So I'm kind of now realizing, what's important and what's not. So I think that realization that I discussed with you on the ride about ego, what's relevant, what's not relevant, really identifying the purpose and being authentic to the purpose. It's not something you can switch on overnight, but I am doing a better job of it. I am eager to get back out there, identify another group to help. I'm eager to put something together that doesn't have to beat this, that can be more inclusive as well, include more people on their bikes or running on the road. So I guess I'm mellowed, for lack of a better term. I've become mellowed, and if people don't respect me, and I, I didn't become the man that drew all the attention. I just feel I'm a lot more at ease with it. I still have the ego. I still want to be popular. I still want people to like me, sure. I still look at my hair when I walk by in the mirror. I still want to look good, but I think I've learned that maybe those things are now eighth and ninth and tenth on the list, not number one anymore. I think I enjoy the process more now than the actual outcome of the event. I enjoy the connecting with the groups and the identifying the events and finding people to partner with. And I'm just more in love with the process because it keeps me busy, and it doesn't involve the ego. Who knew that I was meeting with a mental health group today to talk about an event? No one. No one knows about that, but I still did it because it's giving me that purpose, and I can continue to go forward and tell my story.
So, for anyone who's been listening, following the journey, and has been inspired by what you've done, and wants to go out and do something similar, start a major cause for something that they're passionate about, what advice would you give them?
There is a process people have to follow because, as I said earlier, if you're doing this to help yourself become the best version of yourself, which could mean you're better off physically, it could mean you're better off emotionally, better off in relationships, and better off mentally. There's a process to this. You can't just jump on a bike and cycle 13,000 kilometers and hope for the answers, because we know, I'm the living proof of that. It doesn't work. There is a process you have to go through. But what I will say to people is that time is short and you've got to take the journey. And if you're scared of the rain or the wind or the cold, there isn't any day where you're going to say, it's perfect. I'm going to step out that front door and I'm going to start to take that journey. There are going to be hindrances along the way. You have to accept them. You can't change them. You have to accept them. Some days just suck, but you have to keep pedaling. You have to keep running. You have to keep going to school. You have to keep going to your counselor. You have to keep eating healthy, all these things. So I would tell people, take the journey. Take the journey. Like, it's time in your life. You can't waste another day. Like, I'm so angry at myself for becoming this version of myself at my age. Had I known 5, 10 years ago, I would have been capable of doing so much more and helping so many other people. So if you're silently suffering out there right now and you identify that you want to run one of these events, take the journey. But again, there's a much broader question here about how human beings go through this process that hopefully we can talk about in more detail, because I think it is in itself a cure for what ails a lot of people from a physical and a mental perspective.
What shifted in you to where you went from being selfish, caring about yourself, to where you want to make an impact? What happened to Matt Devine where he said, my life has no purpose because all I care about is myself. Now I want to go serve a purpose and help others.
You know, it's unfortunate that I wish I woke up and looked in the mirror one day and said, well, I got to change. You don't have a choice. When it comes calling, it's like, the representative of death. When he comes calling, you can't escape him. Um, when it comes knocking on your door, the gray, whatever it is, depression, you will notice it. And I guess for some people, it smacks them in the gut. Others get a tap on the shoulder. Um, but if you look around you, you see divorce rates that are going through the roof, addiction rates, suicide rates. There's a reason, and that's because we go through this change at certain times in our lives. And if we don't react to them appropriately, you have really bad outcomes. You have stuff you see on TV. So for me, the moment was when that knocking just became too loud to ignore. I had to find relevance again. I had to find purpose. I had to almost occupy the energy that I had focusing on something. And if you ignore it, well, like, it could lead to people that drink 5, 6 days a week. It could lead to divorce. It could lead to an addiction. It could lead to unhealthy lifestyles. It manifests itself in so many ways. So what I tell people is, when it comes knocking, you know, respond.
Mm.
It won't solve itself. It never solves itself, and it will never be solved 100%. You know, let's be really brutally honest. Growing old, everybody says the alternative's worse. Yeah, okay, I get it. But trust me, growing old is challenging, and you have to figure out a strategy to grow into it and accept that things are changing and they're not always for the best, but you can really do amazing things. And I think that's what I set out to show people. I get up every day and I have trouble now with my hips and I walk slow,
Mm.
but I'm already talking about doing something next year because I know that the moment I let it win or I let it back in is the moment that I'm going to take that step backwards. So that was it for me. It was just when the
Mm.
knocking became too loud. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I mean, it was suffocating. You need to create purpose and your purpose will change. And if you don't find it, it is, I'll tell you, there's people in my life, Chris, that I look at and they're silently suffering. They talk about moments that are tied to standing around in the bar with your buddies drinking. That's 10 years ago. And that's not a good place to be. So that's the best way of answering it. And the unfortunate thing is it's like it's there's a lot of things with this whole experience that are so not black and white. You know, like everybody wants me to say, how did you cycle across Canada? Because I sucked it up, I embraced the pain, I fought through it. And I'm like, if you want me to sound like David Coggins, I can, but that's not real. It's just not real. There's a reason why these guys do it that way. It's because it sells, it makes them, it gives them persona. But the reality of it is that is not normal. That is not what you should experience. There is no black and white. Every one of us has a different way of reacting to these things and finding our path forward. So I'm trying to present reality as much as I can to people because I think everybody thinks they look at themselves and they doubt who they are and what they are because they are not those people. Well, guess what? I cycled 13,000 kilometers and I'm not those people. So I'm living proof it's okay to be flawed, right? Like you can still do incredible things.
Yeah. So 7 and 7, 7 marathons in 7 days. 100 days to cross Canada, head north, head back south. Not just cross Canada. 13,000 kilometers. What's next? Where do you go from here?
So the rough framework of it is going to be we're going to create an entity, and it's I don't want to use not-for-profit entity because there's no monies flowing in or out of this. It is an entity
Hmm.
that lives above and beyond any one event because we cannot continue to rebrand every time we run a new event. So the events will fall underneath this entity. So 7 and 7, quick hard ride for change, and then the next one. So we're going to create that. We're hoping that we can leverage these stories and get invites into people's homes and into businesses and into conferences to tell our story because that will help us identify sponsors that will help fund the next event for the next charity. So we want to create something that is self-sustaining. I hope this story earned me the right to potentially provide that as a service. We've talked to a charity here in Alberta that's focusing on mental health and youth, at-risk youth, to avoid things like living on the streets, sexual exploitation, drug abuse, all the things that can happen to a child if their home falls apart and they lose that support network. So we're working with this charity, and I'll run an event that will combine biking and running. So we're taking the 300 and we're taking the 13,000. We're going to smash it together. It won't be as long, but what it will be is probably more grueling on the day because on the weekend, what I might end up doing is running a Grand Fondo, maybe 120-kilometer cycle, and then running a marathon within the next 24 hours. So, and I'll do that 11 times in a period of time that for each site that we're trying to set up for this charity. So that's roughly, but the bigger news, I think, because the charity hasn't been nailed down yet, the bigger news is this entity that we're going to create that we hope people will come to. We hope to have partners like you within this ecosystem that can that are part of that group, independent but part of the group, if that makes sense. Just like the businesses we want to bring in now. We have already got a very well. Lyle Best is going to be our advisor on that. So it's exciting because it means it's creating something that's going to live beyond any one event, and hopefully one day will live beyond me. And it really steps it up a notch. It goes from an event to an actual philosophy, formalized movement, if you will. We're playing around with names right now, so hopefully we've got a couple of neat ones, but there's been some healthy debate on what we should call it. But so I hope that happens, and I want to. This has never been about money for me, but if I can speak to a business, and that business in turn provides me support to help another charity, that's a pretty good. What more can I ask for? I've always dreamed of this self-funding charitable model, and if I can pull it off, I think it'd be great.
I love it. Well, Matt, I can't thank you enough. As we start to wrap up here, this podcast, what do you want to leave the listener with?
There's more to come. I think that the ride and the run have given me enough credibility where I think now I can tell the story, and I can do so in a meaningful way. I've made relationships like the one I have with you. There's more to come. There's so much more to come, and the potential is huge. I'm seeing the business community kind of come into play now. I'm seeing the potential there. So just give us a chance, like listen and see if any of it resonates with you. The good news is we're right here. You can ask questions to us, and we're not somebody behind a brick wall. Like, we are accessible people who live through these experiences, and we want to help. So that's the biggest thing I can say. There is much more to come, and I know you received an invite. I hope you guys, I won't hold you to it, but I think we've got that mini documentary coming out, and
November 29th.
27th.
27th.
Yeah. I hope it's a really magical piece of work that grabs people emotionally. I don't want it to be anything more than that. I don't care if I look good or if it inspires people. What I want is for it to grab people and for them to say, we want to listen. We definitely want to listen. So hope to see you there, but that's a big ask. But that's how important you guys were to us. The people that got the initial invites were people that were on a very special list. So if you can't make it, just know that it was because we appreciated you guys so much on the ride.
Well, I thank you for the invite, and I can't say how honored that we were, me and the Life Edge, to be a part of your story, to help share your journey, and to continue help sharing your journey, because this isn't the end of our conversation. So I just want to say thank you for what you've done and helping inspire people, but also for becoming a great friend. So thank you.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I appreciate you so much, and we're going to do some really fantastic things. So, hey, everyone. On my last day, I've been thinking back about what's been the hardest part of this epic challenge, and to be quite honest, it's been the self-supported nature of it. I've had to subsist on dandelions, tall grass, protein wherever I could find it, a raw fish. But I'll tell you, I've learned a lot about nutrition over the last few weeks, and I know now more on how to perform on minimal nutrition than I ever have before. So anyways, I'm going to keep going. Appreciate y'all. We'll talk later.